Today I am going to summarize the movie Avengers: Endgame. Please subscribe to my channel, Onyxine. Clint Barton in the beginning teaches his daughter how to shoot an arrow while his wife prepares a picnic meal for them on their remote property. The effect of Thanos snapping his fingers after obtaining all 6 Infinity Stones is Clint's daughter disappearing, along with the rest of Clint's family and half of all life in the universe. After being defeated by Thanos on Titan, Nebula and Tony Stark are left stranded in space. Carol Danvers brings them back to Earth where they are reunited with Natasha Romanoff, Bruce Banner, Captain America Steve Rogers, Rocket, Thor Odinson, and Rhodes, War Machine. The gang devises a plot to kidnap the Infinity Stones from Thanos and use them to undo his deeds, but upon locating him, they discover that he had already utilized them for destroying the stones. Thor enrage him by chopping his head, indicating he went for the head this time. Scott Lang leaves the quantum realm 5 years later to find that Cassie is now a teenager and half the population was taken by the snap. While Romanoff is continuously maintaining watch over both Earth and the rest of the cosmos with the assistance of Rhodes, Danvers, Okoye, Rocket, and Nebula. Rogers has been leading grief counseling sessions for survivors still dealing with the aftereffects of the snap. Lang goes to Romanoff and Rogers and explains that although it had been 5 years for them, it had only been 5 hours for him, and that time stretched very differently there. The three go to Stark, who is now co-parenting a child with Pepper Potts, and lay out their notion that it is possible to use the quantum realm to travel back in time and retrieve the Infinity Stones before Thanos can get them. At first, Stark rejects their request out of fear for the safety of his family and the tranquility he has found. After pondering on the death of Peter Parker, Stark starts to explore mathematical theories that would work with Lang's quantum tunnel and eventually finds one that works. The remaining Avengers set out to put their squad back together with Stark now on board. Now that Bruce Banner has accepted the Hulk as a part of himself, they have fused into a single consciousness. Romanoff sets out to identify the assassin after receiving information from Rhodes that he uses tactics similar to those of Barton. After losing his family, Barton became so overcome with grief that he began to ruthlessly massacre criminal cartels and gangs across the world under the alias Ronin, in an effort to better the world that was still left. He is discovered by Natasha in Japan, and after a bit of persuasion, he decides to rejoin the team to try to bring his family back. Banner and Rocket visit the unassuming community of New Asgard, where Valkyrie and the last survivors of Asgard have settled. There they encounter Thor, who is consumed by guilt for not being able to kill Thanos in Wakanda. Thor has let himself go and is now out of shape, with his facial hair unkempt. He spends most of his time eating unhealthy food, getting drunk, and playing video games with his companions Korg and Meek. After some persuasion from Banner and Rocket, Thor hesitantly agrees to return to the Avengers base. The Avengers are reunited with a plan after testing the quantum time machine on Barton, who confirms that it works. Banner, Rogers, Lang, and Stark set off to retrieve the time, mind, and space stones during the Battle of New York in 2012. Banner travels to the Sanctum Sanctorum, where the Ancient One informs him that removing the time stone from her timeline will prevent Stephen Strange from preventing Caecilius from violating nature's laws in the future. When Banner tells her that Strange willingly gave up the Time Stone to Thanos, she lets him have it, hinting that Strange had planned for a precise sequence of events to occur in order for Thanos to be defeated. After taking the Time Stone, he promises to her that he will return the stone back to avoid bad things happening. Ant-Man and Iron Man plans to go back to 2012 where the Avengers capture Space Stone in Loki. To deviate 2012 Avengers, Lang pulls out a circuit from the past self Tony's man-made heart which gives him a heart attack. Meanwhile, the present Stark steals the briefcase and tries to abscond with it, but he misses it. He is hit by Hulk accidentally. Taking this situation as an opportunity, Loki takes the Space Stone and flees off. Steve manipulates Hydra agents and steals Mind Stones from them. However, he comes across his 2012 version of himself, His older version believes the present himself as disguised Loki and tries to take the Mind Stone, but the present himself is reluctant to give it. Therefore, a fight starts in between them. Finally, the 2023 Steve version wins with the help of Bucky's photo. Steve now meets Tony and Lang to come up with a new plan to obtain the Space Stone. To obtain this, they plan to go to the 1970s, where Tony meets his father Howard and introduces himself as a scientist while Steve sees Peggy. At last, Tony and Steve succeed in stealing the Space Stone along with the quantum particles which they use to go back to their original timeline. Thor and Rocket go to Asgard to pick up the Reality Stone before Dark Elves use it to destroy the Earth. Thor comes across his mother, Frigga, who is going to die soon in the hands of Malekith, and they have a meaningful conversation and says one last goodbye to his mother while Rocket retrieves the Reality Stone. Rocket meets Thor and suggests going back. Thor wants to know whether he is still worthy or not. In order to find out, he summons his Mjolnir and finds out he is still worthy. Nebula and Rhodes journey to Morag in order to grab the Power Stone before Peter Quill. Rhodes goes back to his actual timeline, whereas Nebula stays in past timeline due to her two consciousnesses. Thanos finds out the Avengers' plan by scanning Nebula's mind and sends the past Nebula to present to help 2014 Thanos to come to future. Black Widow and Barton set off to Vormir to obtain Soul Stone. There they come across Red Skull, who informs them in order to obtain the stone one has to sacrifice their loved ones. Immediately, after listening to those words, Barton tries to jump off the cliff but is stopped by Black Widow, and there a fight breaks out. Eventually, Black Widow jumps off the cliff sacrificing herself. Barton takes the Soul Stone back to the Avengers and informs Black Widow sacrificed herself. As the Avengers collected all the 6 stones, Stark, Rocket, Banner start to make a nanotech gauntlet which can withstand the power of the stones when used all the stone at a time. The trio create the gauntlet successfully. Now, it's the time to snap the fingers and bring back the people who vanished 5 years ago. Banner willingly comes front to wield the gauntlet, informing everyone the energy coming from the stones is gamma energy. Banner wears the gauntlet and snaps his 2 fingers and brings back the remaining half population who turned dust when Thanos snapped his fingers. At this moment, Avengers base is ambushed by Thanos, who is bought by Time Travel Machine with the help of past Nebula. The trio Thor, Steve, Tony forms a team and start fighting Thanos. Barton set on a mission to keep Gauntlet to himself. Meanwhile, the trio fights with their mighty power, but the 3 are overpowered by Thanos' fighting skills. Thanos tries to kill Thor with the help of his Strikebreaker. At this point, Steve becomes worthy of wielding Mjolnir, and an epic fighting skill is shown by Steve which saves Thor. But the mighty power of Thanos overcomes Steve's skills and also breaks his vibranium shield alongside injuring him. T'Challa, King of Wakanda, appears along with rest of Avengers who turned dust 5 years ago. Captain America assembles the Avengers by saying his iconic words, "Avengers assemble." All the Avengers take on Thanos' army, while Wanda ragging war on Thanos and breaking his armor. On the verge of death, Thanos orders his head of army Black Order to fire the firearms, but Black Order informs that their army will also take the hit. Yet, Thanos orders him to fire to save himself. The firearms are being fired from the ship and Avengers are being ambushed. Suddenly, the ships stop firing their arms and point their gunpoint into space, indicating a big level threat is coming. It is none other than Captain Marvel. She attacks Thanos' ship in a split second and destroys it. For a moment there is a reunion between Tony and Peter Parker. Captain Marvel takes the gauntlet from T'Challa. All the female heroes of Avengers group come together and helps Captain Marvel, keeping it away from Thanos. There is a one-on-one fight between Captain Marvel and Thanos. After a brief moment, Thanos takes the Power Stone from Gauntlet and defeats Captain Marvel. Tony comes back and fights with Thanos, but Thanos overpowers him and wields the Gauntlet and says his words, "I am inevitable," from Infinity War movie, which became his iconic phrase, and snaps his fingers. He didn't know until this point that Tony stole the 6 Infinity Stones and arranges them in his nanotech suit and snaps his 2 fingers by saying his iconic words, "I am Iron Man." He wipes out the entire Thanos army along with Thanos by turning them into dust. All the Avengers bow down to Tony because of his sacrifice. Some days later, Avengers holds a funeral for Tony at his lakeside house and says their final goodbye to him. Thor passes down his king position to Valkyrie, making her the new king of Asgard, and goes with Guardians of Galaxy. Steve sets on a mission to return the Infinity Stones and Mjolnir to their original timeline. After returning them, Steve passes his shield to Sam Wyson, indicating him as the new Captain America. At the end of movie, Steve and Peggy dance together.